So what are the biggest benefits of publishing your magazine online today? Well, let's define what a web-based magazine is today. And just look at the bigger publishers, Better Homes and Gardens, Sports Illustrated, even in the newspaper realm, New York Times, Boston.com. They are publishing on the web, which means that their stories can be found in Google search. Their stories can be commented on and forwarded into social media, such as Facebook and Twitter. Now, let's start answering some questions. How do you reach new subscribers with an online publication? Well, here Google is your friend, and what I'm showing you here is an example of a search for a tip. And in this case, it's tips for arranging bookshelves. And look at that. The #1 result is a Better Homes and Garden story about arranging and organizing bookshelves. Now, stop and think about that. The #1 result for this search is a story inside a magazine that answers that question for that person who's searching it. So we skip the home page, we go straight to the story, and a new reader lands on Better Homes and Garden and has a chance to subscribe to the magazine. Pretty neat, huh? How about social media? Blogs, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Each story that you publish should be set up so that it can be liked in Facebook. So if I like your story in Facebook and I have 100 Facebook friends, then 100 of my Facebook friends might see that I like the story and I give them the link straight back to your story. And there you might find a new reader. And on the commenting side, I give my readers the ability to leave comments on each story. And each comment becomes more content for that particular story. Okay, so what can you publish on your magazine site? And now we're really talking about content. Well, of course, you can publish stories, you can publish PDF downloads, but I want to focus in on comments a little bit more. If you're a reader of the New York Times, for example, you might notice that some of the stories get hundreds of comments. Hundreds. And what's interesting is that I can jump into a story, not read it, jump right to the comments, and through the comments I can figure out what the story is about and what people's opinions against the story are. It's almost more interesting than the story itself. It's a powerful way to add dynamic content to each story. And guess what? You're not doing any of the work. Your readership is. Okay, how about adding audio interviews? Fire up Skype, interview somebody of note in your industry, and produce an audio file that can be imported into somebody's iPhone or Android while they're traveling. How about video? If you're not exploring video today, you need to, because guess what? YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. That's right. YouTube is in search traffic within youtube.com is the second largest. And that's after google.com. So hey, yes, we're the BoobTube generation or generations. We love video, and you should be able to produce public and subscriber only videos on your publication. And there's another benefit to publishing public videos, and that's they're findable in search. You know how sometimes you go through Google search and all of a sudden you get a few video results? Well, if you're publishing video on YouTube, those videos will show up when people are searching for you, and those are new readers to your magazine who might subscribe. No size limits, that's right. So stories can be any length, you can have any number of stories, and you can publish on any schedule. Pretty straightforward, right? Okay, let's talk about smart devices. iPads, Androids, Kindles. Your magazine should be readable on these devices. And look at this statistic. Nielsen recently revealed that at the end of 2011, over 50% of cell phones will be smartphones. Now think about that. That means in 2012, 13, 14, we're going to have most cell phone carriers are going to be carrying smartphones. And what do people do on these smartphones? They read. They read while they're traveling, and they read while they have downtime. Now, when I got my iPhone a few years ago, which was the first generation iPhone, I suddenly realized that I had no more downtime. If I were standing in a supermarket, I'd be looking at my iPhone, checking my email. If I were getting an oil changed, I would be dialed into my iPhone, looking at email, reading stories, following people on Twitter and Facebook, and all of a sudden, I had no downtime anymore. Now, the key here is that your magazine needs to be readable on all these smart devices natively. In other words, automatically without having to install an app of some kind. So that if I'm on my smartphone, I'm on my iPad, even a Kindle, or I'm online, I can just read the story without having to go to an app. Now, apps have fantastic applications and I love them to death, but the foundation for your magazine needs to be readable on all smart devices. Okay, let's shift gears and talk a little bit about workflow. Publishing your stories online is very different from publishing your stories in a paper magazine. You design once. In other words, you create a master design for your site, and then you get to focus on content and you get to focus on marketing. And that is easy, much easier than having to recreate a layout for every single issue as it comes out on paper. And as far as the content management system goes today, we like WordPress. We promote WordPress. That's what we use. We find that it is the easiest content management system for clients to use. They love to use it. It allows them to publish stories quickly with video, with audio, photo galleries, anything they like. Let's talk a little bit about cost reduction, and I'm going to go to a different place. Now, there's some obvious benefits to publishing online versus paper. Well, yes, you're not laying out every issue, you're not printing the issues, and you're not paying for the mailing costs of these issues. But what if you want to change development companies? You publish your magazine online, you decide for whatever reason that you're going to go to a different company. And what this brings up is the discussion of open source versus proprietary software. In other words, the software that you're going to use to build your magazine. It's very important. And let me give you the examples. So open source means it's software developed by a community and it's free. Firefox is a great example of open source software that was given away. It's a great browser. Lots of people use it. And yes, it's free and it's developed by a talented, passionate group of volunteers. Proprietary is like Microsoft, or in the web world, content management systems, and there are thousands of them, and companies produce proprietary content management systems to give people specific features, but the downside is clients get tied into those proprietary systems, and when a client decides to move from a proprietary system to a different platform, the cost and time is almost as much as the original build. And I've seen this happen for myself over and over again. Now, just for your information, the three most popular open source content management systems, and CMS, you might have seen around, stands for Content Management System, are WordPress, Joomla, and Drupal. We use WordPress, we love it, clients love it, and that's what we recommend. Okay. So now, making money. How do you make money with an online magazine? Well, people pay for subscriptions. There's a paywall, it's called. You can take it further and have a membership community where the subscribers get to interact with themselves and you get to produce special interactive content for them. You can serve up ads, charge for ads. You can serve up advertorials, in other words, stories that are really ads for your advertisers. And one of the big things you can do is you can repackage your existing content into ebooks, CDs, and DVDs. So for instance, you have a great series of stories. Well, create an ebook and sell it for 19 bucks as a digital download. Or let's say you're interviewing experts in the industry once a month, and after 12 months you have 12 great interviews. Well, put it on a CD and sell it so people can listen to it in their car. And the same goes for video. If you're publishing video, put it on a DVD, put a price tag on it, and sell it. So let's wrap up the major benefits of publishing online. Your stories have reach, major reach into Google and into social media. Content. You have the ability online to publish audio, video, photo galleries, all kinds of content, and there are no size limits to the content. And your magazine should be readable on smart devices all by itself without the need for an app. Workflow. Use a content management system that's going to be easy to train other people to use and even fun, so that you can push the stories out and focus on marketing and more content. And finally, yes, you can absolutely make money with a magazine, and you can reduce your long-term risks and expenses by doing it right online. And just as an example, we had a client come on board that actually was printing, stopped printing, went to 100% online, and in their first month they actually gained subscribers. Yes, some complained and went away, but more than enough subscribers joined in that first month to cover and increase the subscriber base. It was a big win, and you can do it too.
Hi, my name is David Reimer, and I head up the sales and marketing here at Schweike Media Printing Company. And today we are going to talk about all the elements that go into getting a printing bid, as well as provide you with some helpful hints so we can make sure and get you the very best deal for yourself, and also guard you against all those evil printers out there. Number 1, final trim size. This is not to be confused with the final size of your graphic files, but the actual final size after your magazine is stitched or bound. And the dimensions are given in width by height. And the best way to remember that is the height is the side that it's bound on, where the staples or the binding is. So it's an 8 3/8 by 10 7/8 magazine is bound on the 10 7/8 side. And the reason that's important to know is sometimes people want a landscape magazine, and a landscape magazine is bound on the short side. So when you talk to your printer, make sure you tell them it's 10 7/8 by 8 3/8. It's very, very important to know that. We've had these mistakes happen in the past. People get a bid and it's not what they're looking for. So make sure you're very familiar with those terms. Number 2, page count. Now this seems very obvious, but I'm telling you, this has been a huge source of miscommunication between me and certain clients in the past. And the reason for that is sometimes people think that page count is a sheet of paper, and sometimes they think it's just one of the single sheets within a magazine. But in actuality, all printers in the world count page counts just like we do and the magazine stand does. So the front cover is page 1, the inside front cover is page 2, page 3, the back side of that is page 4. It's very important that you understand this, because in the past sometimes people have really needed a 64-page bid. Instead they've asked for 32 pages and they get this low bid that isn't real. So make sure you understand this and communicate it correctly to your printer. Alright, number 3, paper. Paper is broken into weight, grade, and stock. And we'll first talk about weight. Paper weights range from anywhere from as low as 38 pound. That's the kind of paper that sometimes you see in like a Time magazine. Really, really thin paper. It's most commonly used on super high run magazines and catalogs. It's not readily available, and it doesn't run very well in most presses, but for those huge million, 2 million, 5 million runs, that's the kind of paper it is. And it goes up from there to 40, 45, 50, 60, 70, and 80 and 100 pound text weight papers. And cover weights go to 8, 10, 12, 14 point weights. Paper grade. Paper is graded on a score of 1 to 5. 1 being the very whitest and brightest, and 5 being the least brightest and has a little bit more of a grayish tone and groundwood in it. Number 4 and number 5 are more similar to each other, and number 1, 2, and 3 are on more of the wider scale. Paper stock. There are various types of paper stocks, but we'll just concentrate on the 3 main and most common. They're dull, matte, and gloss. Glossy is the one that is more common in the newsstands. It's a lot more glossy and shiny. Matte has a smoother finish, and the best way to describe dull, it's right in between a matte and a gloss. Number 4, quantity. It is what it is. Tell your printer how many you need. Binding style. There's 4 main types of bindery. You have your saddle stitch, which is the staples. You have your perfect binding, which has the square edge background, mainly used for higher page count jobs. You have coil or spiral binding. Those are good for cookbooks or manuals or any kind of book that needs to lay flat. And you also have your case binding. And those are more traditional Harry Potter type books that you find in Barnes & Noble. Coatings for your cover. The main 3 types of coatings, you have gloss UV, matte UV, and varnish. The best way to describe gloss UV is it's that extra shiny. You see it on the newsstands a lot. Matte UV has a smoother finish. You kind of sometimes might want to do that if you have like an elegant magazine. And you have varnish coating. The best way to describe varnish, it's a less shiny, less coated, gloss UV coated magazine. Shipping. When you're getting your shipping quote, make sure you don't just give them the zip code of where it ships, but give them all the details. If there's a residential delivery, if there's not a dock and it needs a lift gate, make sure you let them know those things. If you need it in boxes or strapped, all those details are very important to make sure you get the most accurate quote possible. All right, here are some helpful hints that I'd like to share with you from my last 16 years of being in this industry. A lot of printing companies have certain page counts that they're a lot more competitive at. For instance, multiples of 16 are very cost competitive. So if you have a self-cover magazine, meaning you have the same exact kind of paper throughout the whole thing, and you're asking for a quote of 12 or 28 pages, and your printer does not suggest looking at 16 or 32, hang up the phone immediately because they do not have your best interest at heart. Always request samples ahead of time. Most of the time you will be able to substitute one paper for another and save some money and not lose your quality. For instance, 45 pound feels like 50 pound. 60 pound kind of feels like 70 pound. 8 point can often replace 10 point. But again, it comes down to your preference, but I highly suggest you get samples, make sure you feel and touch them for yourself so you can choose the best option for you and hopefully save a few bucks along the way. People always do judge books by their cover, and that hasn't changed with magazine printing. So my suggestion is always invest in your cover over the inside pages. Sometimes you can downgrade just a slight bit on the inside and upgrade your cover. Overall, people think it's a better looking and a higher quality magazine, and you paid less. It's a win-win. Some final trim sizes are more cost competitive for certain printers than others. For instance, digest size, 5 3/8 by 8 3/8, or standard 8 3/8 by 10 7/8 are very cost competitive sizes. One other size that's very competitive for most printers is a 9 by 10 7/8 size if you're looking for something that's a little bit more thick. And those are some of the sizes that I highly recommend you look at because most printers are a little bit more competitive at those sizes. All right, that concludes the elements behind getting a printing bit. We hope you found this information helpful, and if you are interested in getting some more information from our company, we'd love to show you what we can do. You can either visit our website or you can click here for free samples and information.